Welcome everybody to the Durga Yin sequence. Durga, the warrior goddess, the goddess that, or the shakti that we call upon for strength, for protection and for transformation. But also she represents the power behind spiritual transformation. This is a strong yin practice, so I hope that you will enjoy the space that you're going to create into your body. The first pose that we're going to come into, and we're moving into that straight away, is our dragonfly pose. Dragonfly is the opening in the inside of the legs and the back of the legs. It's a little bonus stretch. You can bring your legs as far away from each other or keep them a little bit closer together. The choice is yours. I want you to make sure that you still feel the stretch into the hamstrings. And from here, we're just sinking it forward and down. You can bring your palms to face up. You can let your head hang down. Oh, and it was kind of take a little bit of time. In this first pose, I'll just talk you a little bit more into the yin practice. And after this pose, in the poses, I'll be talking to you a little bit more about the story behind Durga. So we just kind of take a little bit of time to arrive here. There's this rounding into the spine. We don't find that length or reach. That's not part of our yin practice. Our feet are nice and soft, so maybe shake them out for a moment to make sure that you're not holding tension into the hips. Sometimes it feels really nice to rock a little bit, I find, really only at the start. And then we feel the weight of the shoulders and the head just kind of hanging down. Softness in the neck, so maybe shake your head or open and close your mouth a couple of times, letting go of tension that you might be holding in your jaw. The arms are just down. If your hands are onto the ground, have your palms to face upwards. I like that. That sense gives a sense of surrender, more in the mind and in the body. We're just taking this pose. We're using this pose just to arrive onto our mat. Every day you arrive from a different day, from a different moment. Maybe you practice early in the morning and you feel more connection, more stiffness in your body. Maybe you practice at the end of your day and you find more space. Just kind of find here that you have a moment to reflect on how you arrived onto your mat. Check into your body and just kind of feel what is there today. Is there anything you need to nurture? Any injuries? Any tight spots? And check in for a moment. How do you feel mentally and emotionally? Maybe your mind is busy. Maybe your mind is a little bit sleepy, a little bit aloof. Maybe your mind is present. And emotionally, how do you feel? Some days we feel a little bit vulnerable. Some days we feel really open. Sometimes we might feel more into a level of frustration or sadness. So we're just checking in. And checking in means not judging. One of the big lessons of Durga is how we can not be attached to our ego, how we cannot let our ego rule us. And the ego is not only kind of how we beat ourselves on the chest about how amazing we are, but it's also that kind of undermining ourselves, self-doubt, judgments. So check in with your ego. What's happening today? And that's the bell. So we're very, very gently coming up. We mostly will have 4-minute holds in this practice. And we're coming out and we'll find our rebound. So for the rebound, we find straight lines, just laying down in stillness. So beautiful. We need much more stillness in our life. Hands next to your hips. You can always choose to come onto your belly if that feels like a better option. But I think after a forward fold, most of the time, it feels nicer to lay onto your back. If you have any issues into your lower back, you're welcome to find your easy pose. That is just with your legs bent and the knees are winged into each other, as I'm showing now. And we're feeling here as we're laying down, facing upwards. And maybe visualize here Durga for a moment, riding her lion or her tiger, whatever relates to you better, sitting proud with her 8 arms, with all her weapons, but also her lotus flower and her hand in blessing, with her beautiful dark long hair, her piercing eyes. Maybe imagine here Durga looking down onto you. And even though she is the warrior goddess, she is also the great mother, Ma Durga. She is there to protect you. At any time when you need her, you can ask for her strength. You can pray for her power. You can pray for her to arrive. And during this practice, I will be telling you the story of Durga, or parts of the story of Durga. There's many different stories. That's how it works. There's just not one truth. So we're gently coming up and we're finding our next pose. And our next pose is going to be our frog pose. I promised you a strong practice. Frog pose, if you would be standing up, it's our goddess pose. So the knees go out to the side. I like to have a blanket because that will help my knees to kind of open up a little bit more. The hips stay over the knees. I'm going to show this pose also sideways. You can come down onto your elbows if you feel that that's just a better option, but I would like you to come all the way down with your chest. You can rest your chin or your cheek down onto the ground. Also show this sideways, just to have that visual of the pose. Feet are behind the knees. The hips stay over the knees in that same line, and then we're dropping forward and down. Beautiful frog. Standing, it's the goddess. If you've been doing the yang sequence, then you recognize this pose maybe. It's going to help you into your yang sequence, this whole yin and yang sequence of the Durga goddess sequence. This is going to always help and complement each other. For strength, protection and transformation. Sink down here into the space. But she's also the power behind spiritual awakening. So the inner force that unleashes spiritual power within yourself in the form of kundalini. Durga has divine weapons that carry special meanings. You've seen them in the picture of Durga, the trident of Lord Shiva. It's like the chief weapon of Durga, which no enemy can escape, no matter how powerful they are. Her trident symbolizes the 3 gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. It is considered to be one of the most powerful weapons by the Vedas. Then there's the chakra, the disc. It signifies the power of the goddess over the entire universe, and it was given to her by Lord Vishnu, the Lord of creation. Then there is the conch, the shell. It's gifted to Durga by the aquatic god Varuna. It's the emblem of the sacred sound of Om, being the most embryonic sound of cosmos. Then there is Durga's bow and arrow. They signify both potential, that's the bow, and kinetic, that's the arrow, energies of Durga. It points to the fact that Ma Durga is in control of all energies of the cosmos. Often you see a thunderbolt in her hand. This has been given to her by the King of Heaven, Lord Indra, who gifted this with all the powers of the original thunderbolt. Thunder personifies rage and anger that Durga manifests during her bathe with hostile forces. There's the sword. The shrill blade of the sword indicates divine knowledge that gleams through all the darkness. There's a half-bloomed lotus, and that's the sign of humility and triumph. It symbolizes the lotus growing amidst mud and human mind that must develop spiritually amidst the mud of worldly pleasures. Sometimes there's also a rosary and the hand raised up in blessing. And there's the bell. So you take your time. Often you feel really quite stuck into this pose. So move really nice and slow, either out on your belly or out onto your back. The choice is just yours. Go slow, respect your body as you move out of the pose. So don't race. The stiffness that you feel, that's part of the practice. And once you're out, just try to find straight lines and release and soften. Maybe again here, see Durga with all her power, all her ability to protect. See her looking down on you, tapping into that energy, the energy that is there within you, your inner Durga. And then you'll be bringing yourself back. Next we'll be finding to a seated position. Next we'll be finding a forward fold. Now you could choose a caterpillar, which is just your seated forward fold, this pose. But if it is possible for you, I prefer you to find either a dangle or a rhino into the wall. So a dangle is just hanging down like this. The rhino into the wall is the same, but then you're going to use the wall. The wall is behind you. You lean your shoulders into the wall. I'm going to stay here in my dangle. So just take a moment here just to release. Don't go too deep too soon. You're welcome to bend your legs a little bit. You can also straighten them more. There's just never a rush to move into a pose. I just kind of feel that softening here, the relaxation, the softening into the shoulders and the arms. If your hands are down onto the ground, maybe you have the palms facing up in any way that kind of works for you. Don't have to. But I find that it tells my mind to surrender more. And then here we are, sink it down, let go. Opening up through the whole back line of the body. See if you can feel the stretch through the soles of your feet, the Achilles tendons, the calves, the back of the knees, all the way into the hamstrings around your hips, and then into your lower back, the middle back, the upper back, the neck. Maybe you can even feel it into the fascia that's around the skull, into the forehead. And feel here that beautiful sense of surrender, of letting go. Humbling yourself. So important when we work with our Durga energy to not forget that we are humble beings, that we are here to serve, that we are here to bring our qualities into the world. The more you straighten your legs, the more you lean into your toes, the stronger the pose. Make sure that you don't forget to soften. If your legs tremble, just let them shake. Just let them shake. It feels so beautiful.
Keep on releasing a little bit more here towards the end of the pose. Find that extra little bit of depth, extra little bit of intensity, not forcing, not pushing. Just allowing your body to open up into the space that you've created. And then we're going to very, very gently release, bending your legs, maybe going forward, maybe going back. If you're standing, don't bring your head up, just bring your hips down. So you're not getting lightheaded and then you're coming back into your beautiful rebound. Maybe in your easy pose with your knees winged to each other to flatten your lower back into the ground. Maybe just with straight legs. You check in, you feel what is the right position for you. And then you just soften, let go. Maybe again, see Durga. Visualize her. What comes up? And then we'll be bringing ourselves back up into a seated position. Next, we'll be finding a half settle pose. If you have any issues with your knee, I'll first show you half settle. Half settle pose where we're folding one leg back. It doesn't matter, we go from one side into the other. So you can start with your right or you can start with your left leg. We're folding the leg back so that the foot is next to the hip. From there, we're going to lay down. If this is okay for you, then you just stay here and you come into this pose right now. If you know that this is not okay for your knee, then you need to have two blocks. One block you can sit on underneath the hips that creates space into the leg, and the other block can go behind you like a thoracic love pose. Then we're going back onto that block. You can also have a bolster behind you. If you have a bolster, you can come into the position like this. If this still doesn't work, then you can go and lay onto your belly and hold on to your leg, maybe using a strap, maybe not. So there's all different kind of ways of being in this pose. Our half settle pose. If you're in the pose and if it feels okay without the blocks, if it feels okay into your hips and you feel here a big stretch into the hip flexor, I'm sure you can feel it, and a big stretch into your quads on your bent leg side. If you want to add on, then you're bending your opposite leg. You can just bring your foot down onto the ground. You can choose to wing your knee in or out. That kind of intensifies it a little bit. I want you to feel that you're lowering your lower back down towards the ground so that you can find a little bit more space, a little bit more opening into the front of the hip. If you have a lot of space here and you like to add on, then you can also hold on to your knee so that your foot is off the ground. So not the bent leg, but the opposite leg is off the ground. And this kind of feeling here into the space. So the aim here is to keep on dropping the lower back down towards the ground. So we try to let go of our back bend as much as we can. Opening up into the front of the hips. We're moving here into our strong dragon splits pose. So we're trying to find in this practice space into the front and the back of the legs so that we can use that space when we're meeting that demon of a pose, when we're meeting that a little bit later on. Just let it go. The demons Durga battles are not just external. They also and especially represent the inner obstructive forces we may face on our journey to enlightenment and self-actualization. So as you listen to her story, think of it as a parable about the process of inner work. Consider that it is showing you how to dissolve the negative energies of fear, greed, and anger, so that you can stand in your essential strength and beauty. Shumba and Nishumba are two Asuras, so demon brothers with magical superpowers. They've practiced austerities in order to earn a boon or a benefit from their cosmic grandfather Brahma. The boon makes them unconquerable by men or gods, but Brahma has been careful to word the boon so that it contains a loophole. It says nothing about a goddess. So the demon brothers are soon masters of the universe. They eject the gods from the celestial regions and enslave the inhabitants of the earth. The gods are reduced to hiding in caves, plotting revenge. But finally a sage reveals to them that the demons have a weakness. Though Shumba and Nishumba can't be conquered by anyone male, they might be vulnerable to a female warrior. So the gods travel to the mountain where Durga has her hidden dwelling to ask her for help. And there's the bell, so you can either just change straight away, or maybe you need to bring yourself up. Maybe you need a moment where you just kind of release. Choice is yours. So we're just going to the opposite leg. Whatever leg you did first, now it is the other leg that bends. Maybe you're in the same variation, maybe you have an injury on one side, and therefore on this side you need to be in a different variation. You choose, don't kind of go straight away into the strongest variation that you maybe ended up on the first side. Just kind of give yourself a little bit of time, check in, feel what's happening here on this side. Let go of your back bend, so really feel that you're dropping your lower back down towards the ground as much as you can. Find a variation with your other leg that works for you, either straight or bent, winging in or winging out. Or eventually maybe you pick up onto the knee. Don't move here from your ego, right? Don't allow your ego to tell you where to go. Just listen to your body. To access Durga's power, we have to call it. We have to ask for it. We have to pray for it. So it is as if the power waits just out of reach until we summon courage or the desperation to throw ourselves at her feet and ask for help. In asking for her, we bring her forth. Keep on opening up into the space that you've created. Keep on releasing your lower back down towards the ground. Opening up, opening up, opening up. We want to make sure that we're not just setting ourselves into a shape. And there's the bell. So very, very gently releasing. Maybe you need to bring yourself up to release. Maybe you can just roll over to your side to release your leg. Remember which leg you just had folded back. So for me, it was my right leg that was folded back. Maybe for you it was as well. Maybe for you it was your left leg that was folded back. So remember which leg was folded back. And then we just kind of feel here this beautiful sensation as we're coming out into the legs and the hips and your lower back. Stay with that embodiment for a moment, the memory of the pose in your body. So next in this theater, in this Durga theater, is our Dragonsplits pose. I think one of the most intense yin poses. So we're bringing ourselves up into a seated position. The leg that was back last, so for me, the folded last, that was for me the right leg, that leg has to go forward. So if you have any tenderness into your knee, then maybe you want to have a blanket or, for example, a knee pad or a towel or anything underneath your back knee. The right leg, so the leg that was folded last, goes forward so that we don't double stretch into the same leg. You need here your blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe a whole tower of blocks. So dragon splits doesn't mean that you're full flat onto the ground into your amazing splits. Well, maybe it is. For me it isn't, but maybe for you it is. What we're doing is we're walking our right foot forward as far as we feel is good. So now maybe this could be enough. I still have my foot flat down onto the ground. Maybe that's enough. Then I use my block and I bring it underneath my thigh, in my case my right thigh. And that just gives that support so that I can sink forward and down or kind of hold myself up onto my hands just like this. If you find that you're too far forward, then you can also use a block underneath your hands to have a little bit more elevation into the trunk. We don't want to be upright, we do want to go forward, but how far forward is your choice. Right? So you just kind of feel where you need to be. If you want to go deeper, then you can bring your toes up and you kind of kick your leg out a little bit more. So you go as far as you feel is good, then you find a block or 2 blocks or 5 blocks that can support you, right? So either foot down onto the ground, that's more gentle, or toes up, that kind of stretches also more into the calf and also more into the hamstring. And then you do the same thing. Maybe hands onto the ground, maybe you go forward, maybe you need a block. But we still have that forward movement with the trunk. Oh, and then here we are, embracing this beautiful dragon splits pose. So check in here, right? So when we're talking about Durga, we're talking about defeating these demons. And this is definitely one of those poses where demons can easily show themselves. These are your internal demons, right? What are you telling yourself? Oh my goodness, this is too hard. I can't do this. It's too much. I can't soften. I can't stay. You know what? Maybe there was enough of a practice. All of that. So you just check in with your demons. with a voice in your head, and you listen, but you're not buying in. And you know that you can call upon Durga's energy to dissolve the ego.
So, to defeat the demons, the gods travel to the mountain where Durga has her hidden dwelling to ask her for help. As they call out to her with prayers and hymns of praise, Durga appears out of the clouds, clothed in her robes, beautiful and vibrant colors, revealing and concealing her beauty of her breasts and the curve of her belly. An erotic perfume surrounds her. She rides a lion. In her voice, like soft thunder rumbling through mountains, she agrees to intervene and restore the balance. The goddess has no sooner spoken than she has transported herself to the demon king's garden. Flowers drip from her fingers and clouds form and dissolve in her hair. She is beauty personified, allurement clothed in form, enchantment itself. Within moments, the demon kings have come to their windows to look at her. They are connoisseurs of feminine beauty. Of course, they want her in their harem. Of course, they want her in their harem. Of course, they want her in their harem. But when the palace major domo brings the demon's proposal to Durga, she smiles. There is just one difficulty, she explains. In my girlhood, I took a silly vow that I would only marry a man strong enough to defeat me in battle. You know how girls are, full of fantasy and romantic notions. But a vow is a vow. If your masters really want me, they'll have to fight with me. Lady, you are either mad or suicidal, says the major domo. No one has ever defeated my masters. Nonetheless, that's my condition, says Durga, giving him such a languorous glance that he feels stirrings of lust in every part of his body. And if your masters are afraid to do battle, I am happy to take on their army. Which she does. In an intense battle, the goddess defeats battalion after battalion. At one point, a host of goddesses emerge from her body, including the fearsome Kali. Together, the goddesses destroy the entire demon army, leaving only the brothers. Shumba advances upon Durga. You said that you would fight my army single-handed, shouted Shumba in a voice so loud it shakes the nearby hills to power. But you had helpers. You challenged it for fate. Not so, roars the goddess, vibrating the sky with celestial thunder. These goddesses are part of me. The other goddesses melt back into her form, leaving just Durga, shining with an almost blinding light. And there's the bell. So you're going to take your time, very gently coming out of the pose. Take your time, right? Be respectful to your body. The stiffness that you meet is exactly what you need to meet. Remember which leg was out in front. And release. Soften down. We have a shorter rebound here. We're not going straight into the second side. So the leg that was out in front, for me it was my right leg, maybe for you it was your left leg, bend it, bring your hips over to that side and then wing your knee over
to the opposite side, a single-legged twist. Make sure that you really bring your hips through so that your knee can drop all the way down to the ground. That could mean that your shoulder has come off the ground. You just let that happen. And as we're opening up and moving into this pose, the shoulder will release itself down. I like to bring my hand just out, straight out to the side. And I'd like to bring my other hand on top of my knee for that little bit of counterweight. We're releasing here into the spine, especially the lower back. That can suffer maybe a little bit from our dragon splits position. And here we're just kind of finding softness and we're surrendering into the space. The spine will open up. The more you release, the more the spine will respond by moving deeper into the twist. Keep on surrendering. Let go here. More and more softness. More and more space. No tension, right, in your body. Your whole body is soft. Feel with each exhalation that you move deeper into the pose. So Durga has won the battle and only Shumba and Nishumba are left. The goddess's 8-armed form swells until it fills the sky, twirling her great sword like a baton in one hand and her axes, maces, spears and crossbows in the others. She flies through the airs and slays the demon kings. Ma, says Shumba with his dying breath, and then a smile comes over his face as the ecstasy of the goddess fills his being. In that instant, both demons are transfigured, dissolved into Durga's body and dying into the mystery. When the ego dissolves, even the most demonic soul comes home, back to the heart of the mother. Durga returns to her mountain home, promises to return when there is need for her help. And that completes the story of Durga, the warrior goddess. Feel how your body is responding. And there's the bell. So you're very, very gently going to release. And you come back into straight lines for your rebound. Go gently, right? Coming out. Being mindful and respectful of the spine. And then just feeling into your body as you're sinking down. As you let go, as you release. And then we're bringing ourselves back up into a seated position. Here we're finding our dragon splits, now onto the second side. So I did it on my right side first, so this time it's my left side that needs to go out in front. And again, I just take a little bit of time. I let go of the idea that I have based on the first side. So kind of let go of that. Just take your time. Maybe your left foot stays down onto the ground. Maybe that's where you're going to stay. Maybe you need to have some extra support behind your back leg. Maybe your block needs to be really nice and high like this. Maybe it was super low on the first side and now it needs to be really high. And that's perfectly fine. Maybe it goes into the same setting. And maybe you have more space here and you can go a little bit deeper. So be mindful of the ego, right? Ego is such a tricky beast. Much trickier than our dragon splits. Ego was telling us where to go. Yeah, I did this yesterday and yesterday I came here. So now I have to do the same or deeper. No. This is embodiment. This is embodiment. We're just kind of feeling into our body what's right for us today on this side. And we're just kind of moving into that. We're exploring the space. We're allowing our body to indicate where it can go. And then we're just following the body, not following the mind, just the body. And just kind of feel here into it. And if we run into resistance, either physical, but most likely mental resistance, then we just kind of feel into that. And we're with that sensation that's there. Maybe we feel that we're a bit impatient. Wanting to be somewhere else than where we are in this pose. All of that we just meet. And we put a little smile on our face, recognizing it for what it is, the ego. And we're working Durga. And so we know that Durga is there to help us, to transform us for our spiritual journey, our spiritual awakening. Soften, 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 soften. It is an internal battle that we're having and not a battle with our body. Our body is just surrendering, is just opening up, is just responding. And we're allowing that to happen. The battle is on the inside with the ego. That's where Durga comes in.
So the Durga story is about the transformation of the ego. The mighty battle between Durga and the demons is the inner struggle that invariably begins when we undertake real transformative practice. Like those demon kings, the ego enters into spiritual practice with its own secret agenda. Ego seeks control over circumstances, control over the body, and control over the people around us. Power and mastery are what matters to the ego. So naturally, the ego will resist surrendering to higher powers, letting go of its agendas or giving up control on any level. But Shakti has a different agenda. She wants to move us away from egocentric consciousness and recognize our fundamental oneness with one another and the cosmos.
to do this, she must put the ego in its place and ultimately dissolve it. The ego, however, will fight her to the death. Hey, and there we are. Woo! Gently releasing, respecting your body. Go slow, slow, slow. Making sure that you are safe, that you're looking after yourself. Coming back into your rebound onto your back. A shorter rebound here. Release, soften, feel into your hips, your legs, your thighs, your lower back. So the leg that was out in front, for me it was my left leg, bend it. Bring your hips over a little bit. Wing your knee over to the opposite side. So make sure that your hip that you're rolling onto is all the way down so that your knee can come all the way down to the ground. From there, your arm moves out to the side. Gaze can go up. That feels okay into the neck. And here we are in the last pose of this practice, where we release tension out of the hips and out of the lower back. And it's one of those beautiful poses that the more you soften, the deeper your body will take you into the twist. Keep on releasing, keep on letting go. Opening up into the space. Keep your breath long and deep and move it all the way down into your belly. Breathing into the softness. And there you are, very, very gently, respectfully moving out of the pose, coming to lay down onto your back. Releasing down, maybe lifting your chest so that you can bring your shoulder blades under a little bit more. Maybe lifting your head to lengthen into the back of the neck. Lifting your arms to reach your hands a little bit further away. Maybe gently rocking your hips and feel the softness all the way down your legs. This rebound will turn into your Shavasana. At the end of each practice, we have the opportunity to dissolve our ego. The ego we know as the false sense of self, the stories we tell ourselves about who we are, our self-image, our identity. The ego seeks validation and approval, and that is the root of our suffering. So transcending our ego is the real meaning of Shavasana. It represents the dissolution of ego and the awakeness. Transcending our ego is the real meaning of Shavasana. It represents the dissolution of ego and the awakening into oneness. Taking your time here, allowing yourself to rest and to be. If it feels good, maybe set an intention for the rest of your day or your week ahead of you. Thank you for sharing this practice. With love and gratitude. Namaste.